Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bitcoin SV train station. I've got a guest today who I've been meaning to talk to for quite a while. I saw him on stage at the CoinGeek conference in Seoul. He was one of the finalists in the Bitcoin Association Hackathon that happened halfway through this year. And it's Janez from BitQ&A, which is a question and answer forum similar to Stack Overflow, Quora, that kind of thing, but with Bitcoin, and that's what makes it good. So yeah, let's have a word to Janez, and he's also going to tell us about what it's like to be an indie developer, his experiences with the hackathon, the conference, that kind of thing, and also Opassum, which is another BSV project he's working on. So check that out. Be with you in a minute. Bye. All right, Janez, joining us from Slovenia today. Thanks, Janez, for joining us. How are you?
Thank you. It's my pleasure, and thank you for inviting me.
Very cool. Now, I saw you on stage in Seoul at the CoinGeek convention there, and you were one of the finalists in the BSV Hackathon, the Bitcoin Association Hackathon. Just tell us a little bit, maybe before we go into the hackathon stuff, just tell us about the apps that you've built. Now, I know of two. There might be more. But just tell us about BitQ&A and Opassum.
Yes, so there are two so far. There are ideas for more, but currently I want to focus on the ones that I have. So yeah, BitQ&A is the app that I built for the second BSV hackathon, and it is questions and answers platform similar to, let's say, Stack Overflow or Quora,
right?
That has Bitcoin incentive model built in. Mm-hmm. So when you ask a question, you are required to put a monetary reward on it, and then the best answer gets it. That's like the simplest possible explanation. There are more to it. There is more to it, but that's the essence of it.
I think.
And the Opassum.
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry.
Go on.
And the Opassum is an app that I built with two friends after returning from the hackathon, and it's we call it the on-chain vault, but like the more known name would be password manager. So it lets you store your credentials on the blockchain, which gives it the convenience of like cloud password managers, but you really control your own data. There is not like a third person that stores your data on their servers, and you can check on the blockchain in what form your credentials are stored, so you know that they're encrypted and everything.
Very cool. I'm going to put the information up on the screen so that people can check those out for themselves. But I guess BitQ&A is the one you've been working on the longest. You did that for the hackathon. I think that was started back in August or something. Is that right?
Yes. The hackathon weekend was around 15th of August, like that weekend. It started in my time zone at 1 p.m. on Saturday and finished at 1 p.m. on Monday. Mm. And I built it for the hackathon. I was brainstorming the idea before the hackathon, but the actual coding really happened with the start of the hackathon.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I use Stack Overflow mainly to get answers, so I've never actually written anything there. But I have written a fair bit of material on Quora. And I often think to myself, if only there was some other, incentive to be using this, because I feel like I'm just, writing content using my knowledge for someone else's gain. I get a few upvotes maybe, but it's not really enough. So is that where you get the idea?
Reputation score probably, like there are other incentives, but like earning some money is probably even better. Yeah, I suppose.
So how do you actually earn money with BitQ&A? Do you get money for being an answerer and a questioner, or is it just the answers?
No, people that ask questions currently don't earn any money, but you can earn it obviously by answering the questions and also by voting. Because if you vote on an answer, you will get a small portion of the money that comes from the votes that are added after yours. So the idea is that if you discover some good answers, some good content early in the process, you will be rewarded for pushing it up, essentially. And then also the reward doesn't go entirely to the person who answered, but about a third is also distributed equally among people who voted on it. So there are two ways to earn. It's to answer questions and to vote on them.
Okay, yeah. So you get there's incentives at all levels of the process there. Like if you answer questions, you get paid. If you vote, you get paid. And of course, the person asking the question gets the answer they wanted, hopefully.
Exactly. Yeah. And with the reward pool, it's not only limited to the person who asked, but there are if other people are interested in the same question, they can add more money to the reward pool, which makes the question more interesting for people to answer.
That's pretty cool too.
That was the idea.
Yeah, and in fact, that's a feature I haven't seen on the other platforms. I mean, people can comment at the bottom, but they can't really add to the question much. Yeah.
The idea was I come from the engineering background, and a lot of times you will have these pressing problems that a lot of people have. And the idea was if a lot of us have the same problem, then we can put some money together and make sure to get the best ideas how to solve that problem. And it doesn't go just with engineering or developing problems, but also any other thing in life. There might be a lot of people interested in how to make the best pizza in the world,
right?
Or something like that.
Yeah, I was just taking a look over BitQ&A before I got online. I think when I first looked at it, all the questions were to do with BSV development, which is probably good because it's going to be BSV users mainly using it. But since then, it's broadened a bit. It's
yes, we have philosophical ones, and a few are very interesting. I didn't see a few of them coming, and I was really happy when they popped up, because it's interesting to see when you build something and you have this. You imagine how people would use it, and then they start using it in other ways, which means that I like to think that's another proof that there is something to it, that you've built something useful.
Yeah, I think Quora can be a bit like Wikipedia sometimes. You go there to find one piece of information, then 40 minutes later you find yourself reading something completely unrelated and you think, how did I get here and what was I doing before I came? There's a great one. There's who will reach the speed of light first, a lion or an antelope, after a few million years of evolution. When you were talking to yourself inside your head, who's the one who's speaking and who's the one who listens? That's going to keep me up all night, I can tell.
Yeah. And then there was one about marriage.
Is that the one about heaven?
You marry your soulmate, and then unfortunately your soulmate dies, and you planned to meet in the heaven, and then you meet another soulmate, and now who will you be in heaven with? Something like that.
Yeah, that's actually a question I have asked a lot ever since I was a kid. My mother was a Sunday school teacher, so I guess it's one of those questions everyone wants to know. And I think she just gave me a book. The basic answer was I think they just work it out somehow.
Yeah.
There's a lot of logical problems there with these comparing the afterlife with the world around us. Anyway, if you want to hear other people's answers to that, go and check out BitQ&A.
Yeah, and I guess with this kind of questions, everybody will have their own answers.
Yeah.
It's also interesting to see those answers, because if nobody asks that, then we just keep it to ourselves. And then when somebody asks it, like publicly on the internet, it intrigued me a little bit, because I started thinking about it as well, and I discussed it with my wife. And then it's also interesting to see what answers other people came up with.
Yeah.
I think it's value to that.
I'm definitely going to check that out later. But just in case you're wondering, it is still mostly technical questions to do with BSV at this point. There's how to programmatically post a twetch. How is Merkle tree and Merkle root calculated? Yeah. Is it possible to use browser's crypto primitives with a BSV library? Golang library for BSV? Yeah, all good stuff. Yeah. Very solid. So people should definitely check that out. How have things been since the hackathon?
Busy.
Yeah.
I still have a contract job that pays for my life. So after the hackathon, after returning from Seoul, reality kicked in, and I had to do some things that were postponed because of the travels. But I was really happy that I was able to keep dedicating portion of my time to Bitcoin related projects, which is really hard. Like I've been trying to build a side project for years, and I never succeeded, because it was mostly, it ended up with an idea, and then when it came to actually realizing it, everybody involved had other things that were more important.
Of course.
And this time, actually, I managed to build 2 projects in quite short period of time, which I like, for me personally, even that it's a nice achievement.
It was pretty impressive, actually. I mean, I've never developed an app myself, because I can only write a few lines of code at best. But just anyone who can put together a complete package like that. Like I think you said that you wish you were a better designer, and I think both of them look pretty good for the amount of resources.
If you compare, in my opinion, if you compare BitQ&A to Opassum, in my opinion, Opassum looks much better. And I think that the main reason for that is the fact that I didn't build it myself, but I built it with other people. And here you can see how people with different skills complement each other. And that's also the main reason why I was so excited about building this second project, because building BitQ&A alone felt quite lonely a lot of the times. But with Opassum, we constantly had these discussions, what we could do, how we could approach it. Somebody had an idea about UX, somebody had an idea about the underlying mechanics of it. So it was really much nicer experience actually building it.
Right, yeah. And I guess it would have been a weird experience when you had to get up there on stage. I mean, those CoinGeek conferences, they're not geeky. They're pretty glitzy, in a good way.
Yes.
There's the bright lights, the cameras.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, just describing it. There's big LED screens everywhere. There's I mean, Kelvin Air runs a whole media operation around them. It's up there with any TV production studio.
Yeah. I've presented at conferences before, a few of them. So I have some experience with public speaking, but this was something completely different.
Yeah.
Starting with the day before, we had the whole day dedicated to going through the program and making sure everyone is on the same page and everything goes smooth. And then on the actual day, first day of the conference, when also the hackathon presentations, where we had makeup team in the backstage that made sure that we look good on camera. No, I've never experienced something like that. It's very professional, and you can tell that there is a lot of people making sure that everything is on schedule, that everything is going smoothly. Nothing, it's just random, which then ends up in a really nice package. And I learned a lot. And as I said, I gave few presentations before in my life, but I don't think I was as nervous on any of those as I was in Seoul.
Sometimes I think it's best to speak in front of a big crowd than a small one, because with a big crowd you can't really see anyone's faces, or you can see just lights and big space. Whereas when you're in a small group of people, you can see all their faces, you can see their expressions and how they respond to your comments and jokes and that kind of thing. So yeah, I'd give me a big room any day, I say.
Yeah, it's true. But then I personally, even if it's a big room, I really notice people in the front rows.
All right.
and then the back rows kind of fade out. So I always have a few people in the audience that I notice something about their expression on the face or the way they look at you, and you can see if what you're telling them is interesting or not. So yeah. But yeah, it's part of public speaking, and you have to get over it. Well, once I heard, because almost everybody is a little bit nervous before stepping on the stage, and once I heard an idea that if you have problems with that, you should just imagine everybody in the audience being naked, and then you will be fine.
I've heard that piece of advice myself. I don't know if it really works. I think that makes me a bit more embarrassed if I try to do that. Maybe it depends.
I never tried.
I mean, it's probably the last thing on your mind when you're up on that stage anyway. But I think even more nerve-wracking might have been the panel of judges you were presenting to, because you were one of 3 finalists up there, and I can't actually remember who came first, second, or third on that one. I voted for BitQ&A because it was the only one of the 3 that I'd actually used, and it's a more sort of it's consumer public facing app, whereas the others were more sort of back end developer things. But you had to present not only to the audience who would vote, but also to people like Craig Wright, Steve Shatters, and you knew they were probably making decisions on how worthwhile they thought it was as well. So did that intimidate you anymore?
To an extent, yeah. I mean, those are probably the smartest people in the space, which is a little bit intimidating by itself. But I also thought, I built what I built. So at that point, I wasn't able to change the main core concept. So if that is something that they wouldn't like or the audience wouldn't like, there was nothing I could do about it. And besides that, I just wanted to, when I was preparing for the talk, I tried to figure out what kind of questions they would ask me. And I tried to make sure that I wouldn't say anything utterly stupid. I was a little bit nervous, of course. I would lie if I would deny that. But a lot of times in life, when I know that basically what I've done, and there is nothing I can change, I don't stress myself about it anymore. And sometimes this means that I could be sloppy in some areas, but it's also healthy for the stress, I guess. So I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah, yes, I was nervous, but even I thought that I would be more nervous than I was at the end. Because when you're up on the stage, I mean, you just have to do it.
I guess in a way, I'm just trying to put together a picture for other indie developers out there who might be considering participating in the next hackathon or the one after that. Like if perhaps they're thinking, I don't want to get involved, or it's a tough process or something like that. A bit nervous presenting in front of those people. But yeah, just as long as I get an idea of what the experience is like. So
yeah, I think it starts with the hackathon itself. The time is very limited.
Mm-hmm.
And
that sounds more intense to me.
Yeah, and I think you can manage that pretty well, but you can't allow yourself to be dragged away.
Yeah.
Like one thing that I'm convinced is that you should decide what your MVP for the hackathon is, and then try to implement that, and don't add anything else to it.
Yeah.
Even if it sounds the most important feature in the world, because if you don't stay focused and limited in scope, then in 48 hours, you can't accomplish it.
Yeah.
And what happened to me during the hackathon was, as I said, it started on Saturday around noon, more or less. And then the first day I was coding like until 4 or 5 a.m. And then I slept for a few hours. I had like fair amount of sleep, not as much as I would usually have, but still I wasn't sleeping just for half an hour or something like that. And then on Sunday, like the second day, I mostly finished everything that I planned to do by 10 p.m. And I still had the entire night and a good portion of Monday to do other things.
Oh, wow.
And then I started considering if I should keep adding more things, more features to the project. And I decided that no, I mean, I will just stop here, take a breath, take a nice sleep, and then in the morning just test it properly one more time. And I think that was the right decision, because if I would start adding more things, I am pretty sure that 15 minutes before the deadline, something would break, and
I know that feeling.
It could have ended quite differently.
Yeah, before I do something too, I'm always like, oh, should I add just this bit, and then everything breaks, and I wish I hadn't done it.
Yeah, because this is like the main hackathon weekend is actually where most of competition happens, in my opinion. Because I forgot the exact numbers, but I think that there were like 35 projects or even more that were submitted that started the hackathon, and then roughly half of that actually made it to the finish line. So if you want to get into the finals, you have to compete with all those other projects that are also great, and everybody has great ideas and are capable developers, and all that. And it's a very limited time frame. So I think that this is where the main competition happens, actually.
Do you think that the judges are more interested in the concept that you're developing, or the actual implementation of it? The MVP that you come up with the end of it.
I think that they are more interested in the concept,
right?
Because my project was not the only Q&A platform on the hackathon. There were I think there were like at least 3.
Oh, that's another thing.
And what I've been told is that my project was the only one that had this. I mean, the incentive model was the best, or the most sophisticated, so to say, among all the other ones, and that's supposedly what pushed it to the top. So that's more a conceptual thing than the actual implementation. And during the hackathon, you're very limited what you can implement. I mean, it's obviously better if it looks better and if it works better. That's definitely a factor. But I think that the concept and also the idea, because the part of the submission was also a document where we needed to explain our view about the project and where it could end up and how it could grow, things like that. It wasn't strictly necessary to implement everything in the initial project, but we were instructed that if there is something that we missed, but we see it as an essential part of the project, we should write it down. Mm-hmm. So that was judged as well, even if it was entirely missing from the whole picture.
Very cool, yeah. And so after you did your presentation in Seoul, did you get lots of people coming up to you and sort of asking to work with you, asking to give you money, that kind of thing?
A lot of people came to me for sure. I personally am not the best networker, especially if I'm in entirely unfamiliar crowd.
Yeah.
And I was really nervous about Seoul because I literally knew nobody. Being on the stage helped, having, something to initiate discussion with people. So yeah, I had a lot of great discussions. I met a lot of great people. I could easily say that this part was the best part about Seoul for me.
Oh yeah.
Like, all these discussions and people that were around me. There were a few discussions about working with somebody or for somebody. Obviously, that's very initial and superficial at the beginning. After the hackathon, I also discussed possible investments, but nobody just appeared and said, "Oh, here's 100,000 euros."
It very rarely happens like that. Everyone wants to think it does, but it takes a little bit of extra work.
That was not my expectation.
Right. So were you a Bitcoin developer before BSV?
I was participating at another hackathon roughly 1 year before this one.
Mm-hmm.
It was I guess it was just around a month before the hash war.
Right.
It was a hackathon, BCH hackathon at that time in Amsterdam. I remember there were people from both camps at the hackathon, and there were discussions going on, about arguments of each side, and it was in a way it was intense period, but it was also I still felt what I saw there wasn't aggressive in any way, but it was people were trying to be constructive mostly, what I can tell. So yeah, for that hackathon, I was participating with a team of 3. Today, who we built Opassum together, was one of them, and we built a video platform, like similar to Streamanity, but it was using Money Button, and it wasn't charging like per second, but it was like it would play a preview and then stop, and then you had to swipe in order to continue. So we built that, and then the hash war happened, and as I said before, we came back home and we went on with our lives, and we forgot. We didn't forget. Just like, life happened, and our project stayed where it was at the end of the hackathon, and we never continued developing on it.
Oh, okay. I mean, it's always time, I guess.
Yeah. So that was my first actual Bitcoin development experience. I've been
Really?
experimenting with it before as well. And I've been like, I first heard about Bitcoin in probably like 2012-ish,
Mm-hmm.
when I was working at a media company here in Slovenia, and a colleague of mine was telling me about this cool thing, Bitcoin, and he said, "Oh, there are no exchanges or hardly any. We should build one because people will want to exchange it for euros and dollars."
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea
Not
sounded
wrong.
very interesting to me, but at the time, I was totally focused on some other things that I was building, and I was like, "Yeah, I want to do this, but first let me finish this, and then we can see and think about it." Um, yeah, it's like I'm still banging my head why I didn't just jump into it back then, but I guess I needed to mature. Um,
Where
it
did
needed to happen this way.
where did Bitstamp come from? Were they a Slovenian company?
Slovenia.
Yeah, yeah, I thought
Yeah,
so.
they're a Slovenian company. Both founders are Slovenian,
Mm-hmm.
and from what I can tell, one is still actively involved in the company, and the other is now working on other projects.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Slovenia, it's a pretty small country, but it seems to be on the map, when it comes to developing tech projects. I've seen quite a few things come out of there. Is there a really active scene over there?
Um, yeah, there are a lot of people, and a lot of Bitstamp was just one of the projects that were built in the Bitcoin crypto space. Um, so yeah, we're like, considering that we're less than 2 million.
Mm.
I think that we are pretty strong in Bitcoin, and also in tech in general.
Yeah.
Um, there there are not like there is a Bitcoin Association, and there is a meetup 1 or 2 times per year. I've never been to one,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest.
Really, that's quite
Because
fascinating, actually.
it's yeah, it's in another town, and I'm
Yeah.
spoiled.
How far away can it
If
be?
I would be, it's yeah, 1 hour drive.
Right.
So if I would be used to life in a big city, that would be
Mm-hmm.
nothing. But yeah,
In Australia, that's how we go to the supermarket. It's like a 1 hour drive.
yeah.
Yeah, not
That's what
really,
I'm
but
talking
not not not
about. No,
dissimilar.
I've actually been to one meetup.
Right.
So I'm not totally ignorant.
Would you recommend it as a place for people, say, if they live other places in the EU and they're looking for a good, vibrant scene, quality of life, cost of living, that kind of thing? Should they move to Slovenia?
Yeah, I would say that the quality of living in Slovenia is quite good.
Hmm.
We're obviously not like the richest country in the world, but at some point I've been thinking about moving, to other countries, because I worked for companies in the United States and in Switzerland, and there were offers. People would like me to move to where the company was, and when I was putting everything on the scale, like, I still figured out that I have better quality of life here than I would have there. There is a downside, though. Like, it's pretty small. Like, the
Mm-hmm.
capital is just like 200,000 or 300,000 people, which is the biggest city in the country, um, which limits the possibilities in terms of happenings and events that you can attend. There are still things going on, but probably the entire Bitcoin community is 100 people.
Mm.
So you can realistically have just one meetup in the whole country, and even then, the attendance will be probably fraction of a meetup that will happen in a bigger international city or something like that.
Yeah.
So there are pros and cons.
Yeah, Slovenia itself is pretty well located there. It's it's sort of right in the middle of Europe, and it's pretty close to all the major centres. So I envy that sometimes. Coming from Australia, I come from a city of about 3 or 4 million people, but it's nowhere near anything. If I want to go to another country, it's an 8-hour flight at least, and
yeah,
if I want to go to Europe, that's like a day away.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's I am on the coast. Very close to Italy, and I have less than 2 hours drive to the Venice airport, where I can have transatlantic flights and flights to all parts of Europe. Which probably, if you live in London, you still need at least 1.5 hours to get to the airport.
Yeah.
But the environment that I live in is it's something completely different to a bigger city. It's much more calm. Like the school for my kids and the daycare before, it's literally across the street. So you can just walk them there in the morning, almost in your pajamas.
See, I envy that. I mean, I live in the biggest city in the world now, and frankly, I wouldn't mind if it was a bit smaller. It takes me about 2 hours to get to the airport. Finding a daycare center is a nightmare, that kind of thing. So there's a lot to be said for small and comfortable, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it has pros and cons like everything else in life, and you have to figure out what is most important for you.
Nice. Well, sorry, was there anything else?
No.
I don't want to keep you for much longer, but I do want to hear about Opassum, a little bit more about that. By the way, that's a great name. When I first,
it was not my idea. Today I figured it out.
The silhouette of the opossum was a giveaway. When I saw it, I thought, was that a typo? And then I thought, no, it's a very clever play on words there. How did you come up with that idea?
As I said, Tadej, who is my friend and my ex-coworker and co-founder of the project, he figured it out, and I think that I never asked him actually, but I assume that he was playing with the words, and he came up with an idea, and then he checked if the domain name was free, and Opassum.com was free, and I was like,
hey.
Yeah, I mean, it's destiny.
Sometimes I think you're better off looking for a catchy and unique name that you can register the domain for, rather than paying someone millions of dollars for a well-known one. I don't know.
Yeah, especially if it's an indie project like this. Who knows if it will ever become profitable? It's, in a way, it's more of an experiment at the moment than anything else. So investing huge amounts of money, it's that may never pay back. It's a risk.
Yeah. Do you actually have a revenue model for that? Because from what I've seen, it's free to use.
No, it's actually when you initialize the vault, it costs 50 cents.
Right.
And those 50 cents go to us. And then when you store an item into the vault, you pay 10 cents, which also goes to us. So that's the revenue model.
Okay, gotcha. Right.
And retrieval is free. So, when you stored your items, you only pay for updates or for new items that you add. But you can keep, if you're happy, if you just use it for a few passwords that you want to share with somebody or something like that. When you added everything that you wanted to add, then it stays free forever, basically.
Yeah, it's a really useful thing because, like no matter where you are, it'd be good to have that kind of thing or have access to that kind of thing. And what I guess LastPass is the most popular one at the moment. But even that's been hacked a couple of times. I don't know if people got access to everyone's passwords on it, but there have been breaches. So I think people are a little bit hesitant to use it for things that are really important. Is Opassum, is that, would you say that's secure enough to use for, your most secure data, your bank account, say?
Excuse me. I I would think it is.
Mm-hmm.
You can never be sure, and we are also pretty open about how it works. Like when we published it, people popped up in Telegram group and on Slack and were asking about the details, how it works, and how all the encryption happens. And we were completely open and transparent about it, because my belief is that it's better that somebody hacks it right now when it's still at the very beginning than that this happens at some later stage where hopefully a multinational is using it for their credentials.
Right.
It would be much bigger disaster. It uses AES 256 algorithm to encrypt stuff, which is basically a military grade algorithm. US government approved this specific algorithm for confidential documents. So the algorithm itself, I think, should be strong enough for almost everything. If there is a flaw in our architecture, I wasn't able to think about any way where a fatal flaw that could affect it, but you never know. And I would actually would be really happy if somebody would do independent audit of it, because I think that would give it credibility, and probably people would have more trust into its security.
Is it on GitHub?
But yeah, no, not yet. But if nothing else, we will. We need to write the specs, and it's actually not that complicated. So somebody with this knowledge of programming and cryptography could probably figure out by themselves, but there is no need to it. If there's anyone interested in the details, how it works, just get in touch, and we will share everything. And we want to publish that, but so far we didn't find time to do so. There is a Telegram group. There is, if you go to the page opassum.com, there is a Telegram icon in the footer, and that will take you to the Telegram group, where you can reach out to us, and we're happy to answer any questions or give information that is needed to verify that it's secure. Because to be honest, this is the thing that makes me most nervous about this project. Because you have responsibility towards people that are using it,
of course,
and disappointing these people that trust you would be the worst thing, in my opinion, that could happen.
Yeah. And I think for some reason, and it's probably not a valid belief, but people would think they could trust a large company more than they could, a team of 3 or independent developer. I mean, that's often not the case, but I think that's just the perception people have. So, do you or your friends, do you have experience building secure systems like that, or is it just
systems like that? No, we have experience building various types of ads with different levels of security requirements. But like none of us worked for LastPass or anything like that.
Yeah. But Opassum doesn't actually store people's passwords. I mean, that's the advantage of a LastPass, I think, because I think when they were breached, it was people got access to people's master passwords or something. But with Opassum, you type in your key, and you don't actually keep that key anywhere, do you? That's just on the blockchain.
No, even the passphrase which unlocks your vault is not even on the blockchain. It's just on your computer, and it never leaves your computer. And which also means that if you lose it, you're locked out of your vault. We can't help you restoring it.
I think people have got to get used to that idea. People think they can too easily recover their password all the time, and that's what makes things less secure.
Yeah, but it's the same case with MoneyButton. MoneyButton, as far as I understand how it works, it basically encrypts your mnemonics with your password.
Right.
And if you lose your password, they cannot decrypt the mnemonics anymore. So you basically lose your funds with losing your password. They can reset your password and give you access to your account again, but they will then regenerate the wallet, which will have balance of 0 at the beginning.
Kind of defeats the purpose.
So it's the same with MoneyButton. If you lose your MoneyButton's password, then you're screwed as well. And we have plans to add a multi-passphrase option, something like where you have 3 passphrases and you need 2 passphrases to unlock the vault. So you could, create a few of them and distribute them to your family and put one into a vault in a bank or something like that. Yeah. And then just the combination of those passwords would let you unlock it. So then if you only lose one, you're still not necessarily locked out.
I think to be honest, I think that's a much better idea. I think that the sooner people start doing that and developing their own ways of recovering passwords if they forget, the better. Because otherwise it's got to be stored somewhere on someone's server, and that's where it always gets hacked. Like, always.
Yes, and especially, if it's stored in plain text, then the whole security model basically fails at a single point.
Yeah.
And if you store it encrypted, then it's probably safe, but then you always have this single key that if you lose, everything stays encrypted forever. For the time being.
Yeah, until we have quantum computers.
Yeah, or somebody figure out the flaw in the algorithm or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of ironic, a system designed to store your passwords so you don't have to remember them all, but there's just that one important one you have to remember. I'm totally okay with that.
But it's before I was using password managers, I never used the cloud ones, but I have like KeePass, which is a file that you have on your local computer, and then I sync it among my devices. Before I started using that, I had like 3 or 4 passwords. One was the important one for important stuff. One was like the medium importance, and one was for all the dodgy websites over the internet. And I used 3 of them for everything, which is not the smartest way to go, because if one of the sites is hacked and they store passwords in plain text, then you're basically hacked everywhere where you use the same password. But it was just not feasible to remember like hundreds of passwords that we need to remember nowadays.
Yeah.
And with Password Manager, I literally like random generate really long passwords for everything, and I never typed them down. And then you really have unique password for every site. And then if they are hacked, okay, it's an inconvenience, but it doesn't mean that this gave hackers access to every other account that you have online.
Yeah, which is a good thing. Does Opassum actually have a password generator built in? Or is it
No,
just a
not
storage
yet,
vault?
but we plan to add it. It's in very early MVP stage,
Mm-hmm.
the Opassum. Like right now, we don't even have like seamless sync between devices, because for that functionality, we will need a backend service that you will need to connect to.
Yeah.
And this backend service will be just an interface of the blockchain. So we will just deliver you the transactions that we think belong to your vault. And some of them might not, because we won't be able to tell for sure, but it will give you enough information for you or the Opassum on your local device to, rebuild the vault from scratch. And right now we don't have that because we wanted to put it out first and to see what the reactions will be before we go into implementing backends and protocols and whatnot. So right now, if you want to move your vault to another device, we have export feature that basically dumps a huge JSON string onto you, and then you just copy it over to another device, which is inconvenient, but we are working on solving those problems. And the random generator is one of those things that we want to add.
Okay, so my passphrase only works on the machine I'm using, so I couldn't type that into some other browser somewhere else and get the same information.
No, right now not. Right now
right.
you would need
That's
to
good
first import the vault, and then it would work as it works on this machine. But the idea is that this should be the experience, that you come to any other machine, you swipe the money button, and then you are able to unlock the vault.
Yeah,
Basically,
right.
that should be the experience.
I mean, that's kind of the biggest advantage and the biggest weakness of LastPass.
Yeah. We thought it's true. We know how we want to implement, how we should implement that, and it's actually not that hard. But yeah, it's a matter of sitting down and spending a weekend or a bit more than that to actually implement it.
Well, hopefully someone will get in touch with you and you can get all those development resources you need. So, are you on Twitter or any Twitch or anything else people can keep in touch? You mentioned
Yeah,
Telegram
I'm not
before.
really a social media person, but I have a Twitter account that I hardly use. Like 100% of my tweets in last 3 months was new questions on BitQ&A,
Right.
and nothing else. So I'm /RSM on Twitter, and I'm also on Twitch. It's either the same nickname, like /RSM, or my name and family name.
But in any case, people should join your Telegram group if they want the most relevant information.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to reach to me or my teammates from Opassum. And there are Telegram groups for both Opassum and BitQ&A.
Cool. I'll get that information as well. But it's on the websites if anyone's there.
In footers of both websites.
Very cool. Well, Janez, thank you very much for coming on today. I'm going to let you get back to work because you've probably got a lot of it to do. So, yeah, cheers and thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and have fun in Tokyo.